It looks like we got a working live stream, and we also got the sun right in my eyes as normal. So I'm Moshe, and I'm coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on January 7th, 8:15 in the morning. It's a Wednesday. We're gonna have 68, 70 degrees today. I know for some of you that's a very pleasant temperature, and it is for us too. But the problem is at night it goes down to the 40s. Let's get the forecast here. So I'm preparing you guys for the pre New Heaven and New Earth weather. 54 degrees right now. We'll hit 69, low of 50. Low of 50 isn't great. It's not that bad, though. I mean, 41 is much worse. Um, Tomorrow will be even warmer. We'll hit 72, and then rain on Friday, and that's 95%. So we'll probably get rain. And Saturday, a 40% chance of rain. So who knows? And Sunday, 40%. And Monday, 20%, 70%. So we're in for some rotten weather. And then Tuesday, more rain. So this is bad. I mean, this is like almost a week of rain. Uh, and they're saying that the low is going to be basically high 40s and 50, low 50s. Well, let's see what happens. That's a tremendous amount of rain. I hope we don't get that much because it's going to hurt our roof on the Zimmer, the guest house. I hope that doesn't work out. It doesn't get that way. So, for that reason, if you could, um, but I'm going to pray, and if you're a believer and you'd like to agree with it, it'd be appreciated. By Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, in the next few days, week or so, they're predicting a lot of rain, and I pray that we don't get that much rain in my immediate area, and it doesn't affect the roof in our house in a negative way. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. See, under Netanyahu's rule of Israel, that piece of garbage, the landlords can get away with fixing the house. They just tell you if you don't like it, move out. But what's wrong with that picture is you can move in and then go through all the expense of moving and setting up your utilities, and then you got to just leave. But the real problem is they have you pay multiple months' rent at one time. In Israel, post-dated checks are legal, so they'll have you give them 12 monthly checks for, September 1, October 1, November 1, and so forth. And they deposit all 12 in the bank, and the banks automatically push the deposit through on the date, the 1st of October, November, and so forth. And they would rarely ever be able to get those checks back or even want to bother. So you would have to then put a stop payment on each check. And in Israel, a stop payment is invalid if you don't have enough money in the bank to cover that check. Okay? So then they bounce the check. And if you get too many check bounces, I don't know what the number is, 2 or 3, they close your bank account. And then the other banks don't want to give you a bank account. So the landlords are threatening you with loss of your bank account. That's Netanyahu in action. Okay? And in my case, the guy makes me pay 3 months' rent at a time. So it's a somewhat lesser problem with that. So if you were here and the roof caved in and you had 2 months left to go on the rent that you prepaid, and you said, hey, fix the roof. And he said, well, I don't want to fix the roof. You can move out. And then he's not going to give you the money back, right? He's going to just tell you, oh, you made damages to the house after his roof collapsed. He says, well, just fix it. Well, it's $41,000 to fix it. Well, move out. So now you got a lawsuit that's going to cost you, $5,000, and you probably never get it back. You see well, actually, if the roof collapsed and you took him to court, the chances are the judge would do something for you. But on your legal fees, I don't think the judge would do more than $500. So you could win and then you could lose. This is Netanyahu that did all this in his 20-something years being prime minister. This is him. This is how he looks at the people of Israel that are not Satan bots. Okay? And that's one of the many reasons why I call him an abomination. Okay? He's a real piece of garbage. Now, we had an incident today, not today, about 3 days ago, about a judge getting killed in an accident with a motorcycle. We'll cover that. And it coincidentally was the judge handling Netanyahu's corruption trial. So I'll get into that with you. And then we're going to talk about Rubio and Trump threatening Greenland and in turn Denmark. We're taking it over. And Denmark is furiously mad. And, this is just nuts. Then we'll talk about Trump talking about his own impeachment coming up in November 3rd, 2026, if the Republicans don't do well in the midterm elections. Trump himself said they'll impeach him for some reason. So the period of time to impeach Trump, in other words, when they do an impeachment, they have to file articles of impeachment to the House of Representatives, and then the House of Representatives modifies it, and then they vote on it. And if it goes through, then the impeachment process begins. So just filing articles of impeachment doesn't really mean much, And then if it goes through, which most of the time these things don't, but it could, then it would proceed to the Senate to begin a trial, and the Supreme Court justice would be, overseeing it and all that stuff. Okay, so, and then actually getting through it and declaring him impeached, I would think you got at least 2 months, and I'd say a high side of 4 months, someplace in there. It depends on, how slow they go and how many witnesses they call. So in other words, it could futz around in the House easily for a month till they actually vote on it and agree and get it passed. And then it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate's probably going to take a week or two to get ready for it, and the Supreme Court top justice gets ready for it, and then they begin and they start listening to witnesses and examine. So I would say if it goes fast, 2 months or thereabouts, it could be 6 weeks. And if it doesn't go so fast, probably 4 months. So I would say rough cut between 60 and 120 days, and he's out of office. This is him talking. But now are we going to believe that the time for the daughter of Babylon is not going to be up by November 3rd, 2026? That's a good question, So we'll cover that, and then we'll cover what's going on in Iran, which I tell you, to me, it's shocking. And I'm trying to figure out what really is going on over there, okay? Because the whole process of what Iran is doing and not doing is way out of normalcy, okay? And we'll go through some other stuff, and gold and silver prices are nice and encouraging, and we'll go from there. Let me get into the live stream. Make sure we got a live stream, and make sure we got sound and picture. That grinding noise will probably be over in a few seconds. Make sure we got a live stream, and is Canada still relevant? Well, I'm sure it is, but it's not a superpower. Is Canada still relevant? It is shocking the government in Iran is soft on right as well. Yeah, we're gonna dig into that today. It is, you're right. It's extremely weird, out in left field, you know? Sorry about that grinding noise, but it seems to be over. All right, let me pin this up. What I want to pin up. The we're gonna That's one of the key points today is what's going on in Iran. So, all right, where do I start? So we pretty much covered what Trump said about himself getting impeached. Oh, I didn't shut this. I hate these iPads. I really do. They got a lot of good points, but they're good for about a year and a half, and then they just turn. They start developing issues. Okay. So Trump himself said it, that he expects to get impeached. They call those the midterm elections. And he's basically saying if the Republicans can't hold a majority, then he's going to be gone. He said they'll just find anything to impeach him on. I think he's right. Impeachment does not incarcerate anybody. It does not confiscate their property or their money or freedom, or you don't go to jail, and none of that. It's just basically the Congress firing the president for cause. That's it. So there's not much issue in terms of taking his freedom away and all. So there's no criminal consequence. So Trump is doing very, very unpopular things, and that's why he's afraid. Okay. So what happened in Israel with this judge that got killed, I think, 3 days ago? We have a judge driving on the highways in Israel with a motorcycle, which is common, and I don't say it's typical for a judge because he's exposing himself. Now, I don't know if he had a 200cc motorcycle or he had a Harley 1200cc. I have no idea. I lean to the 200cc. I think a top judge like him that handles a lot of top, very important, big criminal cases shouldn't use a motorcycle, but he might think he could be safer on a motorcycle. Anyway, he's dead. So what happened, there was a guy with a vehicle driving off the road, off from the highway, but near the highway. Then he jumped over from the off-road to the highway and hit this guy. The police have the guy in custody. Now, I do not know yet if this guy ran from the police and they picked him up a day or two later. I don't know. I know there's a lot of traffic cams. People in Israel like to keep a traffic cam in the dashboard pointing out. So if they get into an accident and the person lies, because Israelis will lie and take a false oath, they could show the traffic cam as evidence and protect themselves. And if they did something bad, they just rip the traffic cam off the dashboard, throw it on the floor, and then make believe it was broken or it didn't exist or something, right? So this is the judge handling Netanyahu's criminal cases. 3 of them. Which, if he gets convicted and he's still in office as prime minister, he'll be immediately taken out of the office immediately. The conviction comes in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, probably before 5, he'll be thrown out of office. Now, did Netanyahu do this? Well, my first cut on this is no. Now, you know I can't stand Netanyahu. He's an abomination. My first cut, in my opinion, of course, my first cut is no, he didn't do it. Why? Israel is a country of warriors like Rome. A lot of the politicians in Israel were in special forces and stuff like that. And they have enough brains to understand what a targeted assassination is and experience and exposure to know how it's done and how it's not done. This doesn't at all look like Netanyahu did it. Why? Predominantly, the guy got caught. Was a Jewish guy. It appears there wasn't a team of people there. And a targeted assassination or murder for hire, if you want to call it that. This doesn't sound right. Okay, an auto accident with an Israeli registered car and lots of traffic cams on. I mean, if you did it at night, the traffic cams would be on, but you wouldn't be able to see what was going on inside the car that was doing the ramming, so it would be ineffective. I don't know. It sounds to me like possibly the Iranians recruited some guy to do this to make it look like Netanyahu did it. That's one, I would say, likely scenario. I would say Netanyahu doing it is, unless he's snapped mentally, which we haven't gotten any signs of, I don't think he did it. Do I think it was a coincidence? Well, it's hard to believe in coincidences like this. The guy had been on marijuana, the tox screen showed. So anybody like a Mossad guy or something like that, or a hired assassin on marijuana, that doesn't sound like something Netanyahu would do. It's very, very difficult to swallow this as coincidence. It really is. One of the things that will help us is to look at the judge that takes his place. If the judge that takes his place starts receiving motions to dismiss Netanyahu's cases and dismisses them, well, that changes things. Could Trump have helped him out? Maybe, but it doesn't sound like it. The better way to do it would have been to do it in such a way as Muslim terrorists did it, like with a gun, a bomb, something like that. That's what I think. I think the way the police are interpreting it is they realize that this doesn't look like Netanyahu killing the judge. It would be illogical to say, well, this is the way they did it. They staged it to not look like a normal assassination. Yeah. But where did they find the stooge? Maybe they have it all set up that he's going to get nothing. In other words, he was on marijuana, that's bad. He drove recklessly, that's bad. He did that and he did this. So what are they going to do with him, Sentence him to 5 years and he gets out in 2 or 3. And somebody paid him $1 million or $3 million. Yeah. What we got here is a driving accident from bad driving. Well, all accidents are from bad driving, you can say, right? So that brings us back to somebody paid this character a few $1 million to do it. And I would think it's more likely Iran than it is Netanyahu. And I don't like Netanyahu, but Israel's the wrong country to play a murder the public officials game. You know, it's not right. You got to remember, Netanyahu is watched 24/7 by security details. Okay? And that makes life difficult. And a lot of his enemies in politics are watching him. You know, and his enemies in the international front, like Iran and other Muslim states, are watching him. So it's not all that likely that he would do it. I think it's more likely that Iran would stage it and hire this guy to do it and just let the people's paranoia work. And they would assume that Netanyahu did this, but I'm really not. You know, and if he did it and the politicians knew it, they probably wouldn't want to go through anything other than a vote of no confidence, which is going to be happening anyway. So that's more details are going to come out. Now, there's a chance that it was just a random coincidental event, that some guy just got up in the morning driving reckless. He may have done this in the last 3 years, 200, 300 times. He's driving off the road and then just jumps onto the freeway because it's quicker than going the correct way and entering the freeway. And, you know, that's a possibility. But chances are, if he was doing that, the people in Israel would phone him in and say he's making a menace. And after he was phoned in 3 or 4 times, they'd probably have a cop laying out somewhere watching for him to do it at about that time and get him and pull him over and give him 2 or 3 traffic tickets and, you know, scare him with, you know, suspension of license so much that he quits it, you know. So anyway, I can't give you a clear, definitive answer. I don't think we're going to get any investigative results coming back from the government stating that this was an assassination, unless they happen to find some information like that, which I doubt. And then we got to look at the judge's replacement and how he looks at Netanyahu's cases. So if we see the judge's replacement come in and start dismissing Netanyahu's cases, bingo, he did it. Okay? If we don't get that, well, and I don't think we will. It was just some, you know, it was either an idiot thing, which I doubt, or it was Iran or some other group trying to kill the judge. Could it have been Trump and the CIA type, or, you know, special forces that could easily come into Israel as civilians with some American passport and arrange this whole thing? Yeah, but it doesn't ring a bell because they got a guy caught that did it. It doesn't ring bells. That we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens on that one. Okay? It sounds really lousy, and we got to just wait and see what happens. We can't go flying off and say, oh, Netanyahu did it, Netanyahu did it. It just doesn't sound like he did it. The guy's name, the judge that got killed, was Benny Sagai, and he was the president of the Beersheba District Court that's handling Trump Netanyahu's criminal conspiracy, criminal corruption cases. And he is dead. and they have a suspect in custody. And they say the suspect had marijuana in his system, and so it's not sounding good as to what happened here yet. We'll find out, I guess. Uh, Maybe not. Not sure. The driver's being charged with several serious offenses, including negligent homicide, driving under the influence of drugs, which I believe is marijuana, reckless driving, and deviating from the lane and causing a fatal collision. These are initial legal suspicions. Formal charges can be filed. Okay, they're suspecting him of this. They haven't filed that. That's a normal look. Any crazy accident like this, leaving the drugs out, is going to have all kinds of traffic violation charges. But they're normally, if it's an accident, they're going to give the guy some kind of failure to give the right of way or something, get him on some traffic violations, one or two. They may or may not put him in jail. The driving under the marijuana could cause more penalties to come on him. But, do I think they're going to put him in jail for 10 years? No. See, people will take crimes for money and go to jail for a few years. They don't care. They figure, well, I get, 3 million, 10 million for doing this, and I sit in jail for a few years. Well, heck, what am I doing? Making $1 million a year sitting in jail? And the guy's got a light sentence, so he's not going to get maximum security, And if he's got pull, he can get a lot of release time where he has to go for medical or he has to go for legal. And, so he could go show up at a lawyer's office and all his friends could come into the lawyer's office and visit him during the day, and then he goes back to jail. Same with the doctors, The mafia guys would do that. The guy would get out of jail. The cops would take him to the medical offices of the doctor, and the doctor would kick the guards out of the office, saying it's confidential medical. Now, I think that's not allowed, though. So somehow he'd get them out of there, and then there'd be a back door, and the friends of the mafia guy would come in and visit him and get directions from him and then sneak out the back door. But normally, when you're transporting a prisoner, the prisoner doesn't want, the doctor doesn't want the prisoner left alone with him. Well, I worked in law enforcement. I was a very young kid. I got yelled at by a doctor once for walking out. So you never leave him alone with me. You don't do that. He was scared. He was kind of nice to me, but he didn't like it. I didn't think I was more than a few feet away from the guy. I don't know what I did. I went outside maybe to get something I don't know what I did, but I never did it again. But they don't like it. So here you go. You got your prisoner. You put him in, it depends if you're a county jail, a state prison, a federal prison. You're basically going to put the guy in chains. He's going to wear a jumpsuit. He's going to have his handcuffs. He's going to have leg chains. And he's going to have a belt. Might be a special leather belt you put on him that's about as thick as a weightlifting belt. And you run the chain from the hands through there and you hook it to the feet so he can move his hands, but only a certain amount. And he can't really see. You got guys in prisons that have studied martial arts for, 7 years, 20 years, all around, right? And they can kick, okay? And if you're handcuffed in front or behind, or to a belt or anything, you can kick. And they could kick some guy who's not ready, or they could kick a guy who also studied martial arts for 20 years who just wasn't ready for it. They kick him by surprise. They could, of course, break his jaw, break his nose, fracture his skull, knock him out. And there's other things that could do a combination. He could kick the guy in the groin or the solar plexus and get the guy to bend over, and then he could give him a knee in the head, taking his handcuffs hands and holding him down and pulling him into the knee. And you do that a few times, you can kill the guy, so you're going to take a guy in to see a doctor.
Hey,
yes,
I'm going. Remember, you're having oatmeal.
Okay, thanks. So you're going to, have the guy in leg chains, arm chains, and stuff like that, tie it together. Now he can walk as a shuffle, Could he jump up in the air and do like a wrestling drop kick? Probably. But it's a dangerous thing to do because he's not going to be able to properly get his hands down there to break the fall. So, yeah, he's going to hurt you with a drop kick. Probably not really that bad. And he's going to hurt himself when he lands on the floor. So they're pretty weak. They could get close to you and do a headbutt where they hit you here in the head, on your nose or something like that. If you're stupid, you always keep them in front of you. That's the secret to it, That's what I would always do. Keep them in front. I'd never let them get behind me. I'd never really want them on the side of me either, unless it was for a second or two while I was moving. But if you got them behind you, that's a bad thing. That's idiot behavior. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with this. Okay, so they got this the driver that killed the judge, his detention. They're not calling it an arrest. His detention, which I believe is while the investigation is going on, has been extended. I don't know how long, but they'll probably give the police a few weeks anyway, So the police are trying to figure out exactly how and why the vehicle left the shoulder or off-road area and entered the main roadway where the collision happened. I believe it was in commute time, or you might say rush hour time, so there's probably a rather generous supply of traffic cams in the cars that people can, provide to the police and figure out what's going on. So this is what we found published. At least one foreign outlet, in this case, Iranian state-affiliated media, published a headline framing the incident as suspicious or linking it loosely to Netanyahu's legal situation. Inaccurately calling the driver of the vehicle that hit the judge. Oh, they're saying that this judge is not. No, that's false. From actually false saying. They don't have the story straight in Iran, but they're trying to bring attention to it and suggest that it could have been Netanyahu. Well, it could be they never want to let a good, crisis go to waste. Or it could be they did it and they know if they go too far with the story, nobody's going to believe it. So we just got to wait and see what develops from this, okay? Now Trump is coming up with more barking and stuff that is unsubstantiated and probably either a massive exaggeration or an outright lie, which he does frequently. He's saying Venezuela is going to turn over millions of barrels of oil to the U.S. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez, that's the one that got elected as acting president, was the vice president, has previously said Venezuela will protect its resources, though Trump has said she has been cooperating with the U.S. since Maduro's ouster. Well, the stock market in Venezuela before his Maduro getting arrested, was running 1,600 or so, and it went up about double. So it appears that people knew that Maduro was getting snatched. Now, this could have been Americans that were told when it's going to happen, and they believed in America. And they went in and bought the stock market aggressively, knowing they were going to make some money. Okay? But it appears that somebody with insider information was buying the stock. Now they're talking that Maduro and Venezuela have billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Well, I don't know if they do or they don't. But if they don't, nothing there. If they do, the CIA can likely come to some conclusions about that. Maybe, maybe not. So they may never get to the bottom of that. Remember to use that Bitcoin and convert it into dollars or euros or something. Is going to be required. You're going to require, you got to run it through one of the banks that they could monitor, but not really, because they could go to other big corporations and buy things they need for the country. It could be anything, They need various kinds of food or medical or millions of things. They could pay for it with Bitcoin. Putting it in their personal bank accounts is going to be rather difficult, but believe me, there's ways to get it done. They won't have much trouble at all. Trump is trying to make out that this vice president woman was actually an enemy of Maduro and perhaps sold him out. And that might cause her demise, which saves Trump from having to do it. Because she's publicly stating over and over, that she's not cooperating with America and she's going to put up military resistance just like Maduro. The U.S. has been moving military forces into Europe, aircraft and personnel mostly. And this could be rotational deployments. It could be getting ready to do military exercises. It could be political decision to maintain a certain amount of troop levels in NATO and Europe. It could be the start of a new large-scale combat deployment or operation, like attacking Iran or something like that. So we really don't know exactly what was behind this. So the European leaders don't like Denmark getting overrun by Trump over Greenland. Denmark is the ones that really kind of run Greenland. And, and then the U.S., the White House says that the American military is always an option. So Trump is actually talking about conquering, like a Viking warrior conquering Greenland. Can anybody say impeachment, Trump is pushing Israel and Syria together, so they're starting to have talks, and it looks like they're going to share intel and develop economic ties, and that could work good for Israel's economy because the Syrians could sell a lot of food products, I believe, into Israel, and it would be much lower in cost than what we're used to. So that's one way they're fixing the economy in Israel. They brought the price of chicken down some. A kilo of chicken is, well, I know it's 7 shekels. Let me try to get it for you in dollars. It's over 7 shekels. I can't remember. Let's give it, let's just call it 7 because I think it's pretty low. Okay, 7 divided by 2.2. It's about $1 a pound for chicken now in the stores here. I believe we're looking at the non-kosher stores. $1 a pound for chicken. That's not that high, The chicken wings used to be cheaper than that, but this is, I think, general or whole chicken or something like that. So we're seeing some prices come down. doing duty-free food transactions with America. So that's where I think they're reducing cost. And this has affected milk, and the dairy farmers have gone around pouring milk in the street in massive quantities to get mad at the Israelis. Well, I have to look at the situation and see who was doing the gouging of prices. Was it the okay? Um, so there was another bad night last night of protests in Iran. A lot of people were getting killed. They're shooting back and forth, the protesters against the Iranian security forces, police, and the IRGC, and another BA, some militia group, BAIJ or something like that. I don't know. Iran's got all kinds of soldiers and militias. Trump says, "Well, you killed the unarmed protesters. I'll come in." Look, I think before you'd see uh, Trump do anything in that regard, they'd have to have a night where they killed 5 or 10,000 people. Even then, I don't think Trump would go in. Even if they killed 175,000 people tonight, I don't think Trump would do anything. He'd move troops in the area and aircraft, which could be what's going on with the Europe thing, and try to scare Iran. But he will have Netanyahu attack Iran. That's us. Then they counterattack us and we get missiles. So if you want to ask me what I think about Trump, he's as, birds of a feather flock together, and he flocks with Netanyahu. Now they're getting a general strike in Iran, in the Kurdistan region of Iran. They're calling and they're getting a general strike. A massive joining of Kurds to the protesters. So the Kurds are, of course, being discriminated against by the Iranians. So they've joined the protest movements, the revolutionaries, against the seated regime, the mullahs in Iran. Uh, the Kurds are a minority in Iran and are considered, like the Arabs in Iran, second class citizens. The regime discriminates against them frequently. What do I mean by second class Arabs? The Iranians are not Arabs, they're Persians. Seriously. So it doesn't surprise me that they would discriminate against Arabs, thinking they're superior or something like that. in a city called Abdanan in Iran province, in Elam province, rather, Ilam, not Elam, in Western Iran. So it's a place in Western Iran. Additional goods. Now, this place, Abdanan, the protesters or the terrorists, well, they're not terrorists, the fighters, the people fighting, not the military or the government, have looted the food stores of the IRGC people in that city. So the Iranian government would keep a supply of food. So if something bad happened, their soldiers would eat and the people would starve, which is, pig dictatorships do this all the time. Um, and the protesters are controlling that city, of course. Um, the Kurdistan region is very close to the border with Iraq. Uh, so there's now two cities that the Iranians have taken over. I mean, they run and control the cities. And in at least one of those two cities, the police have cheered them on and joined the revolutionaries. There's big crowds running around chanting, anti-regime, like kill Khomeini and, get death to the Khomeini and suggest a breakdown of state authority. They're running the show, not the nation of Iran. And they got the police siding with them. So the police obviously have lost confidence in their government. So, the big challenge that we got, which we'll try to deal with right now, is what the heck is going on in Iran? Because this is not at all in character for the Iranian government. Um, Before we do that, I want to mention that the U.S. has been making military threats against Colombia, um, who are filing diplomatic threats. They're trying to fight America diplomatically. Trump doesn't care. Um, And Colombia has said they'll resist militarily. And they did move 30,000 troops to the border with Venezuela. But what the heck can they do? Do they have good jets? Do they have stealth jets? Do they have good missiles? Do they have a good navy? Do they have modern tanks? They don't have any of that. Can they go into jungles and be guerrilla fighters? Yup. Can they become terrorists if Trump invades their country? Yup. We had some nice movement from silver in the last 24 hours or so. A little while ago, silver was at $84.04. Very nice. It's substantially over $80, $84.04. And gold went to 45.12. So the important thing to learn here is that silver is frequently going over their big resistance point of $80. Of course, the big resistance point for silver is $100. When we see that, you'll really hear from me online. That'll be massive. And gold keeps popping back up over 45, and they try to keep pushing it down. See, the thing is this, kids. Once it gets over 45, and by that I mean it starts staying like 45.70, 45.42, 45.80, it's on the way. Now, the resistance points between 45 and 46 and 47, 48, and even 49 is not high. Those are not strong resistance points. Is 5,000 a strong resistance point? Oh, you could just about call it the mother of resistance points. That's a big landmark to see gold go to 5,000. And it looks like we're very close. And we haven't seen any new wars break out. Now, Israel and Iran are likely headed to something. Is that going to bring gold up? Yes. And crude oil a little, maybe 8 or 10 a barrel, not much. It'll bring gold and silver up, but not a lot. But what happens if Israel starts really doing a tap dance on the head of Iran and damaging all kinds of stuff over there? Well, then it could get serious. To get serious. So what's happening with Iran? Well, the most obvious, likely, possible thing here is Iran is, they're big liars. And they did get missiles into Israel and cause damage in Israel, but they didn't cripple us, or they caused a tremendous deal of expense and damage. But nothing like what Israel did to them. And Israel kept doing it for 6 or 8 weeks after the war stopped. Every day, or almost every day, explosions and this and that. Well, that was Israel working with the protesters, as people like to call them. They're more like revolutionaries. So when you add all that damage up to what Iran got a lot of damage. Now, did Iran have a lot of damage in their nuclear facilities? No, but forget that nuclear stuff. Don't get hung up on that. Look, if the nuke stuff was so easy to make work, and these nations would be blowing each other up all the time. Pakistan would have blown India up. China would blow India up. Come on. Don't concern yourself with that. It's not there. But the ballistic missile city is very troubling. Iran was getting in 17% of their missiles to Israel. And that's a shot of over 1,000 miles. So somehow they're making those missiles guide. They're not precise, but they're hitting, general areas, You shoot it at a nuclear facility, it could go off by 2 miles or 3 miles. So it's not a precision effective warhead, but it does travel fast. And you got to remember this. Israel has the following missile defense systems that these missiles defeated at the rate of about 17%. The Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 2, and the THAAD. And now there's a fifth system, although nobody's telling us how many of these we have, the Iron Beam, the laser weapon system, which in some versions can take down a hypersonic missile. That would be the 300 kilowatt version of it. Okay. Now, a kilowatt means 1,000 watts. So that thing has 300,000 watts. Oh, no, it's a 300 kilowatt. I'm sorry. No, it's not that big. 300 kilowatts. So, yeah, it is. It's 300,000 watts. What the kids buy it is that you can't get those in a lot of countries. In some countries you can. They make them out of kits. They get a 1 watt laser beam, which is dangerous. It'll burn your skin. It'll pop a balloon, light a match. And I think some of the kids could actually get these things jacked up to 2 and 3 watts, But just hundreds of thousands of watts. Now, what's the distance these laser beams shoot? Well, on these little, $25 or $50 1 watt things, they shoot miles, But the beam, the dot of the beam is like the size of your thumb, maybe, or maybe like this or something like that. So you start shooting it at, let's say, 10 or 12 miles. If you're going to shoot it at a building, it might be on the building, but you got to see it. And, if it spreads out too much, it washes out. But you'd easily see it at 5 miles. That's a toy. I'm talking about a toy, okay? You'd see it for 5 miles. Hundreds of thousands of watts. I mean, I don't know how far this thing goes. I would have to say a couple of 100 miles anyway. But does it have enough vigor or force at 100 miles to burn through metal on a missile? No, it doesn't. Well, I think it could get out 15, 20 miles, something like that. See, it's one thing to see it. It's another thing to burn it out. Now, this thing also, on lower power settings, you could mount these things on a Humvee or a small vehicle or a tank. But I think those are going to be more like, instead of 100 kilowatts or 300 kilowatts, 25 or 50 or something like that. So, yeah, a vehicle that has these adapted can defend itself from incoming projectiles with it. Yeah. Can it be used to, say, one tank to attack another tank? I don't think so. Why? Because the amount of time to burn through the armor of the tank would be excessive. Could it do it? I think so, but it would have different. Let's say you're burning it on the left side of the turret, just to say it. Okay, so then the guy could realize he's being burned on the left side of the turret and then turn around, and now his right side of the turret is facing you or something. So then you got to start burning it all over again. Then he shifts another way, and now you're on the front of the tank. And in the meantime, he's taking his artillery and his missiles, if he has them, and firing all kinds of stuff at you. And if not, he's screaming for jets and helicopters to come in and attack the laser. But how do they know where the laser is? How does he know? He doesn't, because you can't. I don't think you're going to pick laser up on radar. Why? Let's check. I don't know. That's a good thing. Let's look. Okay. I have no idea. I just thought of that. Can radar pick up a laser device like the iron beam with its radar and find the location for the laser device that way? Period. Is there any other way to find the location of the laser device? No idea. Normally, radar doesn't pick up laser, but they say it can get in other ways. Let's see. Can radar detect the laser beam? No. Can radar help locate a laser system like iron beam? Yeah, because it probably has radar. Let's see. Indirectly, yes. Radar can detect the target being engaged, like a rocket or a drone or something, and the sudden destruction or heating effects on the target, the engagement geometry where the interceptor effect must have originated. They need very, very smart radar that can walk it back. In other words, the radar detects the drone while it's being heated up and then tries to find the origin point of that. The problem with this is that you're looking at 2 or 3 or 4 seconds maximum to burn the incoming missile or drone up, right? So how the heck are they going to turn their radar on, look for the target, find the target that's being attacked and know it because it's being heated up, and then try to calculate the path of the laser to its origin point in 2 to 4 seconds, or even 1 to 4? They're not. I mean, you'd be talking about, I don't even think America or Israel has radar that good. But if they did, it would be restricted probably to Israel, America, a thin possible for China and Russia, very thin. Nobody else. Thermal sensors are supposedly able to do it. So I imagine the high energy laser is generating heat at the source of the laser. I would think some of that's going on. Heat in the power system, heat in optics, and cooling exhaust. Yeah, but how many countries got that capability where they're going to be using long range heat detection? And you got to remember, they shut the laser off. Okay, so they turn it on max maybe 4 or 5 seconds, right? Max. And then they shut it off. How are they going to get it that fast? See, it's very difficult. Yes, theoretically, a country like America and probably Israel, yeah, they could do it. But who the heck else? You think Brazil's going to do it? Colombia, Cuba, Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Belarus, they're not going to do it. Where I think the deficiency would lie is I believe the Iron Beam would have to be using some kind of radar to find the target, get coordinates, lock it in, and then train the Iron Beam on those coordinates. So they do have missiles that destroy radar. So when they turn their radar on for the Iron Beam, the enemy detects radar came on, then it gets a lock on it, and then it fires anti-radar missiles. So if they take the radar and keep it 60 yards or 200 yards away from the Iron Beam, what could happen is it would hit the radar and not the Iron Beam, but the Iron Beam would be useless without radar. Now, I don't know if they put the Iron Beam, the truck that runs it, if they put radar on the same truck as it. I don't know that. But again, I say again, well, you see, the radar would be staying on unless they're using other radar. See, they could have big over the horizon radar, 50 80 miles or something away from the Iron Beams. And it's getting a lock on incoming projectiles, and it's sending that lock to a computer system, which is transferring it to the Iron Beams and other anti-missile systems, perhaps, and taking these things down. So there's not much chance of getting this thing. Yeah, it's a possibility, but for who? If you're talking, can America do it? Could Israel do it? Probably, yeah. Could anybody? And I don't even know if we could do it. So I'm not so sure that there are such vulnerabilities that are practical. Could Lebanon do it? Could Gaza do it? Could Syria do it? Could Yemen do it? Could Iraq do it? Heck no. Maybe China could. Maybe. That's probably about it. America, I don't know if America can do it either. They're a little bit behind in these laser systems. I'm sure they're building it. What they're building is ours. I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, I'm reading a lot of vulnerabilities, but I think they're very, very low risk. Um, Very low risk. And I think that, well, I know that the Iron beam integrates in with the Iron Dome, the David Sling, the Arrow 2, and the THAAD missiles. All of this, the computer systems in Israel are integrating together. And when we had the fight with Iran in June, we had 17% of the Iranian missiles bled through. By the way Netanyahu is acting, I have a strong feeling that he probably believes he can reduce that down to maybe 5 or 7% or something like that. So he can probably get it down by at least 10% reduction, maybe 12 or 15% reduction. Nobody has 100% takedown. But when you're sending out 5 systems, you could achieve 100%. Don't kid yourself. That's an arsenal of defensive systems. You could achieve 100% or 99%, 98, 97. Very, very high success rate. So I imagine Israel was working overtime on reducing that 17% bleed through. But you also have to figure Iran's been reducing it at the same time too, if possible. Maybe not, because they've been having a lot of trouble. So if the Iranians think that they have not been able to improve their missiles well enough to defeat the Israeli missile defense systems, what do you got? You got the scenario that you're looking at right now. They're scared to start going whole hog on the protesters. Could they? Yes. What does it involve? The protesters take over a city. How can you easily stop it? Now, I'm talking real world. I'm not talking, left-wing garbage. Okay. How do you do it? Well, let's say you're looking at a city of I don't know, 500,000. You're going to have to take about 100 tanks, 300 or 400 Humvees, probably 100 anti-personnel carriers, and you're going to armored personnel carriers, I should have said, and you're going to have helicopters that can attack, although Iran has very few, and you're going to have to start by taking these tanks and putting them in locations where you want complete security. The center of the city, okay? Where the banks are, where the government buildings are, stuff like that. You put them around the streets, okay? With the tanks supporting them, you put troops out on the street. And you could easily get them little areas to stand where they got a bunch of sandbags. So it makes it much more difficult to walk up on the soldiers and kill them when they're behind sandbags, okay? But if the soldiers is just standing out on the street, you can just walk up on them, a few people acting like they don't know each other. And when you get within, you'd have to know what you're doing. You'd probably be taking shots at about 20 feet. Then everybody draws down and starts firing on them. But if they're behind sandbags, they're just going to drop down and hide behind the sandbags and then return fire. Okay. Now, when a bunch of these soldiers are standing near 2 tanks, the guy in the tank is probably going to be sitting up there with an open turret, and he's got a light machine gun or a not so light machine gun. So he's going to have a 30 caliber machine gun, which is anti-personnel, or he'll have a 50 caliber machine gun, which is quite effective on people, but it's also very good for knocking structures down or attacking vehicles and so forth, even attacking aircraft. So that's what they'll do. And it becomes very difficult for these revolutionaries to take out the soldiers. but there's going to be a lot of dead people till they get into the city and set up and start running it, and the protesters just leave them alone. Now, if America, France, UK, Germany, Israel decides they want to give these rebels in Iran, let's call them that, revolutionary forces, 100 or 200 shoulder-fired missiles that are anti-tank, well, game changer. Now they just have to get someplace, within a mile maybe, or half a mile, where they can set up, maybe with some altitude, or get a straight line of fire at the tank. And the guy can, hunker down somewhere and not be seen, and get himself a nice seated or prone position, lock on the tank, take his time aiming it very comfortably, get it locked in, and then boom. And the thing can be wire guided. So for a period of 3 seconds or so, he has to keep the sights on the tank. Then it hits the tank, blows it up. He takes off immediately. Once the tank is hit, he's checking out at high speed. He gets out of there. And they keep doing this. Chances are America and these other countries would probably give them 2,000 or 1,000, so they could have misses and stuff like that. And what does that do? That reduces the effectiveness of this altogether, because the tanks become a death trap, and the soldiers walking around naked or just in jeeps called Humvees or something like that, is the revolutionary forces could kill them easily with pistols, with rifles. You just find them on the street, and a few people at the same time just draw their weapons, boom, 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 even with pistols. So you got people dropping 10-round clips into a vehicle. You got 4 or 5 people doing it. You're putting 40, 50 rounds in the car with a vehicle that's not armored. And good night. They'll all be dead or on their way to dying. You could, the supporting countries give them hand grenades. They throw hand grenades. Again, they could use an anti-tank missile on a Jeep. Why can't you? What's going to happen? Hezbollah was using it on people, on cars, on individual soldiers. The thing's deadly. You can use it on anything. You could shoot it in a house. They shot it at Israeli houses. You could shoot it at a house. They could also get RPGs, good old RPGs. And they make projectiles for the RPG that are armor piercing. That means they go into tanks. And they're not going to do well on an Israeli tank or an American tank. But when you're talking about a modern, up-to-date, latest version tank, but when you're talking about, Egypt's tanks or Iran's tanks, yeah, they're going to do really good on them. So maybe these revolutionaries already have these anti-tank missiles, and they've been used on police or security force vehicles. And the Iranians know bringing the tanks out isn't going to do them any good. So they don't know what to do. It appears to me maybe that scenario with the anti-tank missiles may or may not be true, but the fact that the Iranians don't know what to do, that's a reality already. They may be eating too much tossed salad, and they're too scared to move. But when they start letting cities get taken, now they could take the city back, but it's pretty bad when they let cities get taken, because Now the revolutionaries got two cities. You better believe they're gung-ho on jumping around trying to get another 10 or 15 cities. If they could take care, get a region with an international airport and increase their ranks and stuff like that, countries like, Israel and America and Germany and France and Great Britain may start doing airlifts. The way that generally would run is getting special forces guys, in small numbers, like 40, 50, to help these guys, help them plan attacks, teach them how to ambush, okay? Teach them how to blow bridges, how to do sabotage. Teach them about eavesdropping and communications and give them the devices and things like this, right? And they start taking over cities. Well, the missing piece of the puzzle then becomes these countries supporting the revolutionaries in Iran have to start taking out IRGC and Iranian militia positions and bases and airports and all of the above. Okay. So they have to start airstrikes, first the anti-aircraft systems, anti-missile systems, then which means the radar is gone. And then after the radar is gone, you get their airports and airplanes, and you just keep pounding them and pounding them and pounding them, and they got nothing left. And then it says they're going to leave. In Jeremiah 49, it says that Elam, which is basically Iran and likely Iraq and a piece of Syria, are going to leave, and they're going to fall because of the enemies, and the damage to Iran and Iraq and possibly a piece of Syria is so great that they have to leave the country, and they get scattered into every country there is. So this is going to be preceding Jeremiah 30 verse 11 and Jeremiah 46 verse 28, where God says he's going to destroy every nation he scattered the Israelites into, which is pretty much every nation. So you see the picture? You're getting the feel of this? Okay. So there's going to be enemies in the plural destroying Iran. It would be most unlikely for them to be Islamic enemies. I won't rule it out, but it looks unlikely. Now that the protesters have proven to themselves and others that they could take over cities, they're going to be going for this like crazy. And then if they start getting adjourning cities next to each other, then they got regions. Yeah, well, once they got regions, it's over for Iran. Then Iran is going to, out of stupid desperation, fight back. Now, maybe what's going on is Khomeini and the families and the henchmen are collecting their affairs. They're getting their affairs in order, and they're stealing money and sending it to Russia. So they're waiting till $1 billion or $2 billion is waiting for them in Russia, and then they're going to get a plane and go out. So they don't give a hoot about these cities being taken. They're leaving. So who's left? Well, the IRGC, the military, the Air Force, well, what do they do? I don't know. Apparently there's going to be resistance because they're going to be destroyed. So Khomeini may leave, and they might not tell anybody he left. So Khomeini could already be in Russia. Putin's not going to tell you. Russia sends countless aircraft to Iran in the last 3-4 months, loads of aircraft. So how odd is it for Khomeini to put on a uniform like a sergeant, or maybe it would be more suiting to look like a colonel or something like that? The intelligence services know who the generals are. They probably don't know who the colonels and majors are. So he dresses up like a colonel and major, gets out of a Jeep, walks into the plane, and basically, hey, Khomeini, my master, here, sit down, lay down, and that's it. He never comes back out of the plane and flies away. Then his family and the other high ranking officials that are going to be escaping do similar things. And how in the world is America going to know these guys are who they are? They're not. They're just not. It's easy for them to conceal it. They put on a military uniform, they come in a military vehicle, they pull their military cap down normally, like anybody else does, right? And they put on a pair of sunglasses, and that's it. America's not in the habit of shooting down Russian planes going to Iran or Chinese planes, but they don't want to go to China. So Khomeini and them could already be gone, or Khomeini and them are moving their wire transfers and their money and their Bitcoin and everything else around, trying to very stealthily take it into Russia. And they don't want to run away till they got a few $1 billion over there, because they might need to support 100 or 200 people. So they're cleaning the coffers out. And while they're cleaning the coffers out, they have to stay there to make sure they can protect what they want to send out. Once they got the money, they're out. I'm sure Putin's going to want a fee, 10, 15%, to do this for them. So that's a lot of money on $1 billion. That could be at 15%, $150 million. So if they send 3 billion, Trump's making almost $500 million off it, and that goes in his personal account. I don't know what in the world Putin wants all that money for. What's he going to do with it? I have no idea. That's a decent explanation of why it looks like they're playing dead. They don't want to see an attack come on the country from killing the revolutionaries, because then they can't leave. Now, Netanyahu and Trump would be very, very happy to just sit still and watch this happen. And, they in the meantime give money, medical, weapons, technical support, intel, like wiretapping, eavesdropping on, and all of this stuff to make their path more and more successful, you know. And it makes fighting the Iranian government easier because these guys are going to run the government out of certain areas. What in the world was this? I think it was a pocket call. And I think it was a pocket call. Somebody hung up. Um, so I think that's what we got going on. All right. Let's watch and see. The way it's running now, it's probably going to take just another week or 10 days, and they're going to own major pieces of Iran. And that is going to likely open the door to finish off the military and end the whole thing, as I see it. I myself was a little surprised when I realized that they took over two cities. In other words, the police caved in and adjoining them and, cheering it on. So the police themselves, when they realize that it is possible to get rid of these jackasses in Iran, they're pretty happy about the whole thing. This is not such a rare thing to see happen. Let me look at the live stream and see what's cooking, if I got questions. How many times? I've never been in Thailand. I've never been in Asia. Thanks to the moderators. I see you keeping the place cleaned up. Thank you. Yeah, somebody points out they're not paying the police. That's right, to hold them back their paychecks. I remember that. Yeah. I don't know when it ever got relieved. They are paying the Iraqi. Yeah, they're paying the foreign people. Yep. They're puppet states and so forth. Yes, that's right. Good point. Thank you. Colombian, somebody saying the Colombian guerrillas are very effective. They are, but when you look back to 1960s, 70s, and 80s, um, you're dealing with a different kind of special forces than what we have now. The deal with the special forces is not just that they know how to shoot and they could swim 7 miles and carry 40-pound packs for crazy distances. No, no, no. That's not so relevant anymore. It's the technology that's relevant. Okay? The electronics they have, the support they get. This is the very expensive equipment that they use that the guerrillas don't have. Okay. So, in other words, the guerrillas are going to need to do communications electronically to be effective, and they're going to pick it up. Not only going to pick it up, they're going to break the codes, and they're going to find their GPS location, and they're going to get drones over the location to kill them. That's a for instance. Okay. So that's why their guerrillas are, yes, they're good, but you can't just run on that. You need the technology, and they don't have the technology. They don't have the technology. And that's the big difference. Also, hiding in the jungles with all the forestation is very difficult to find. But I don't believe they're going to take, a team of 6, Navy SEALs or, any Special Forces, Recon Marines or Marauder Marines or anything, and have them go marching around the jungle looking for them like went on in Vietnam in the 60s. No, they're not going to do anything like that. They're going to look for them using heat sensitive planes, and drones and things like that, try to find where they are in the jungle and then surveillance them, probably with drones and planes. And when they get a confirmed sighting that these are terrorists, then they kill them. Somewhat the way Israel is constantly killing the Hezbollah and the way we used to kill Hamas, this type of thing. So it would be getting done that way. It wouldn't be getting done conventionally. One second. I don't think there's anything. I gotta check this. So the way of warfare has evolved. It's changed. I'm going to take a break for a second and we'll transition into spiritual warfare. Now, the special forces would be used in Venezuela after the Americans move in to stop terrorist raids on the government, the military of America, the government of America there, protect revolutionaries, stuff like Colombia has a good-sized land border with Venezuela. So what Trump's trying to do, probably on the advice of generals that got their heads screwed on correctly, is to get rid of Colombia as soon as it looks like they're very serious with Venezuela. Colombia will go, because they don't want guerrilla warriors for Venezuela running around in Venezuela conducting strikes and sabotage and assassinations or whatever they get away with, and then running back into Colombia, running to Colombia for safety, where they could rest up, go to the hospital, see the doctor, collect intel, wait a few days and go back in and start up again. So they might have special forces patrolling around the jungles there looking for them. But it's much wiser to just take Colombia out. What if China and Russia give missiles to Colombia or Iran, and they start firing at the American positions in Venezuela or the oil refineries or something like that? Yeah. It's much wiser to knock them out before. And that's what he's going to do. Cuba, basically, he said Cuba's going to cave because they were getting their bulk of their money from Venezuela, which is going to stop. So if they pick up signs 1959 all over again, Russia, China, Iran bringing missiles into Cuba, that'll change. Quick, immediately. Trump has not gotten anywhere near where he needs to be with Venezuela yet. Okay? Nowhere near. If there were revolutionaries in Venezuela running around taking over cities, throwing the government out, he'd be in good shape. If the Khomeini and his crew run away from Iran, it's going to probably look a lot like Syria, but prophetically, no, something else will happen. Khomeini is a mean, evil, rotten Satan bot, and he likely, when he gets out and his money is out and his friends and family are out, the people in the military may not even know he's out. And he may, just tell them he's, to avoid assassination, he's hanging out in Russia till the battle's over, and have them launch. On who? On American bases in the Middle East where Trump has 50-something thousand, I think 58,000 soldiers in Navy and Air Force. Launch on Israel, launch on the other oil countries, launch on Europe, all of the above. What does he care? It's lost anyway. Who give this a try. And who knows? They may not like getting hit with missiles and come to the peace talks quick. And if they do that, then Khomeini becomes a hero. He gets them to stop fighting. He stops fighting. All the sanctions get removed. And then he goes back and machine guns the revolutionaries, tens of thousands maybe. And he's back in the driver's seat. I don't think that'll happen. Maybe Khomeini's not leaving. I don't know. It's very difficult to understand what this idiot's doing by letting his cities getting conquered. It has to be fear somewhere along the line. Khomeini could be very sick. I don't know. America might not know. If he's in a bunker below 300 feet of rock, how are they going to know he's sick? Be hard. They just keep it off all electronic communications and we won't know from it. Khomeini could be dead. I don't know. My main thought is he's going to do what Bashar Assad did, which I think he got about $2 billion out and then left to Russia. Now, Bashar Assad did that very suddenly. He stayed there till he could wire all his money out and then he took off. But Khomeini, I think, planned for this after we saw what happened to Bashar Assad. So he might have already gotten a few billion out. He's trying to get more. He might think he needs $12 billion or something, I don't know. I don't know what is in the mind of Khomeini, if he even has a mind anymore, I don't know. Now, this is going to make Trump not want to really attack Iran right now, I think. Or if he sees enough disruption in Iran, he may go in and attack to build up his public image. It's really kind of hard to figure out what's going on. It's so unusual. Khomeini might be afraid of a war because he knows he's going to take bad losses. And he knows what happened to Maduro. And he knows that between the Mossad and the CIA, he's in a bad way in Iran. And he doesn't want to see himself getting hauled in chains to the federal prison in New York, being charged with all kinds of crimes. Or Trump may just leave it alone because he doesn't want to see the Muslims try to break him out of jail in New York and give him to Netanyahu. Or Netanyahu grabs him and brings him here. And the only answer to bringing him here is the death sentence. Otherwise, they'll constantly be planning at breaking him out of jail. So they'd have to run him on a military tribunal within the first day or two, get a sentence for death and kill him. They don't have the the method of execution with the injection set up in Israel, so they'd have to hang him or shoot him with a gun, with rifles, a firing squad. I don't think they would hang him. They could. They hung Eichmann. I believe they hung him. So they might hang him. And Khomeini doesn't want to go through all this, and he doesn't want to see his family captured, and them go through it. They run a bunch of charges on him with Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the attacks on Israel, and all that. It just sentence him to death, and then the way to do it is just sentence him for death, and then they just take him and walk him outside and shoot him before he even knows what happened. Okay, he's sentenced to death, and then the next thing they grab him, and then he's being walked outside, and then he's shot in a few minutes. They have it all ready. And that's it. He's a hot potato. You can't keep him around live because people are going to try to get him free. Okay. Spiritual warfare. Let's see. Shall we help the Iranian protesters? Why not? B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I loose off of all the protesters in Iran against the government that are overthrowing the government. I loose all witchcraft, sorcery, spells, curses designed to affect them or prevent their overthrow of the government. All such things are cast null and void, of no value, no effect, forever, and shall never return. And no new witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments shall be placed on them for the next year continuously, nor used to impede their progress of their revolution. And I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if you're a believer, a true believer, you could agree with this, even if it's a video. Now, why am I saying this? Why not tossing the demons? Well, the demons are not against them trying to get these people to not do it, or it wouldn't be happening. So I don't care about the demons. I don't want the others putting any witchcraft on them, so I don't want them being impeded. I want to see them run fast with it. Okay? Now, let's reiterate our spiritual warfare efforts against the government of Iran, so they don't have what to work with. See, you got to be crafty with this, You got to be, wise, and at the same time, not, evil, okay? My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind all the unclean spirits that are anywhere from being inside of any member of the Iranian government, the Iranian military, the Iranian security forces, intelligence forces, or in any capacity working for the government of Iran as an independent contractor, as a terrorist, as an employee, or an elected or appointed official. All you unclean spirits working for these people that are in these people must immediately depart from these people, never return unto them again, and no unclean spirit shall go into these people for the next year continuously, and no unclean spirit shall appear to these people, guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, lie to them, deceive them in any matter or any affair for the next 1 year continuously. And I further cancel and make null and void for all time any witchcraft, sorcery, curses, hexes, vexes, spells, enchantments ever emanating forth or flowing from any of these people that are involved with the Iranian government and anybody else doing it for them on their behalf. All these witchcraft, sorcery, curses, hexes, vexes, spells, enchantments are done away with for all time. They're of no value, no effect. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now that'll keep them from trying to get their head screwed on straight according to their definition of screwed on straight. Their definition of screwed on straight is me. My definition is you going into Alice in Wonderland, you know. I mean, you're in Gaga land, you're in a lunatic asylum. If you're listening to the unclean spirits, they're all crazy. They're all idiots. But they think they'll win because they listen to them. So if they can't listen to the unclean spirits, then they think all is lost. And when they think all is lost, they're not too sure what to do. And so far, that's cost them 2 cities. Let's see if it goes to 25 cities. If they take enough cities, there's going to be American forces there helping them, not to help them, but to protect the citizens of Iran. Oh, yes. And the son of the Shah will, at some point, if Trump gives him 4,000 or 5,000 soldiers, he'll come back there, and then Trump will probably give him a helicopter parked permanently near his house. So if it gets bad, he jumps on that helicopter, takes off, and then lands someplace where he can be put on on a plane. All right. Now let's keep our spiritual warfare moving. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my heavenly Father Yehovah, I bind all the unclean spirits from being inside any person who works for the governments of Israel, France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, United States, Canada, Russia, and Ukraine. All you unclean spirits have to depart from all these people that work for these governments or appointed or elected officials or independent contractors or in any way, shape, or form receive economic benefit from these countries. You unclean spirits shall depart from all these people, never to return unto them again, and no unclean spirit can go into these people for the next 1 year continuously, nor can you guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, lie to them, or deceive them in any matter for the next 1 year beginning now. And you also shall not be able to enter into any of their, and I include the Iranian government too for this. All you unclean spirits shall not be able to be in any real estate owned, operated, or controlled, leased, or rented by these governments, or any vehicle, or any boat, or any aircraft. For 1 year continuously, you cannot be in any of these facilities. So if anybody with an unclean spirit in them, or a beast or critter with an unclean spirit in them, enters into any of these places or things, you have to immediately depart from them. And if anybody who tries to give any help to these government officials affected by these commands, the unclean spirits in these people shall immediately depart from them, never return unto them again, and no unclean spirit shall go into these people, or anyone who lives in the same house as them, or be in anybody who lives in the same house as them, for 1 year continuously, beginning now. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if you people are believers and want to agree with it, even if it's a video, go right ahead. So this is going to create a decent amount of restructuring of things. You see, when they don't have contact with the unclean spirits, and the other countries don't have contact with the unclean spirits, and they don't have unclean spirits, they tend to want to do nothing. But now look at it, if they tend to want to do nothing, and there's revolutionary forces in their country rising up against them, aha, that's a good formula, isn't it? Sure. I pray, my Heavenly Father, about Israel. I pray that you do something in Israel to get rid of this snake, Netanyahu. And I pray we don't have another Satan bot snake take his place. And I pray the Satan bots no longer run the government of Israel. And I pray the two witnesses run the government of Israel. And I pray this happens soon and quick. And I pray that you protect and guide and lead and direct and nourish the two witnesses to do a really good job. And I pray also for Apostle John and the anointed prince the same way. And I pray you would bring them together now, if possible, bring them together now, and they can begin working. And I pray for the salvation of the poor and gentle and the meek in Israel. I don't pray for the Satan bots or the mean, evil, wicked people that constitute the 2/3 that get cut off. And I pray that Satan just loses all his control over Israel and all the other countries I've spoken about today in previous requests to you. So Satan has no control over these countries. Israel, the Iranian government as it is now, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, America, Canada, Lebanon, Yemen, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, that Satan has no control over these governments and cannot influence them, guide them, lead them, direct them, or do anything with these governments. And I pray these governments all come down. And I pray this to you, my Heavenly Father, that Israel would rise up. And I don't see how Israel can ever rise up with Satan bots running the government. And I pray that the Satan bots running the big industries, the big companies, they're gone too. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with it if you like. So we've been doing this for a while, and America's not attacking anybody, really. Kidnapping Maduro is a nothing, and Israel's not doing nothing, and nobody seems to be attacking Israel. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for all the true believers with the true gospel who love Yeshua, and I also pray for me and my wife. I pray that you would give us pour out your Holy Spirit on us, and we would be walking in your shalom, peace, your joy, your calm, your rest, and the gifts of the Spirit would operate through us, and we would know more about the true gospel. And I pray that we would all have, if we need jobs, we have jobs. If we need more clients or customers for our businesses, we'd have them. If we need to get support from the various governments for physical incapacities, that we would have it. And I pray that we would have adequate finances and then some. We would all have nice places to live without any issues or problems. And we would be happy, healthy, and whole, and that you would bring us together in Israel, and then we would be able to fulfill the scripture, with two or more gathered together in my name, there I am in their midst. So, in your midst, so it would seem to me that we need to be physically gathered together. For Yeshua to be in our midst, then I would pray we can do that, and also have a place to bring people that are new to the faith. And I pray we all bear good fruit and spread the gospel, the real, true gospel, correctly, with signs and wonders following. And I submit all this to you. Oh, I also pray for better videos and live streams, and for the peace of Jerusalem. And I submit all this to you, my Heavenly Father, for your fulfillment, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this as a real believer. I also pray, my Heavenly Father, for all the animals and pets that we all have, that they would be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole as we would be. And I pray we have your strength, stamina, that you give us strength, stamina, and endurance. And I pray we have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us, that everything in our body that needs healing gets healed daily and constantly. And I pray that we have no accidents, no tickets, no breakdowns, no getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any car or vehicle, and no problems with any transportation mode. And I pray we don't get discriminated against for being believers or over race or language or national origin or anything. And I pray we don't get robbed, scammed, frauded, ripped off. We don't get attacked or anything like that. And we don't have any problems with any governments or courts or corporations or businesses or anything else. B'Shem, and if there is anything like that brewing, I pray you would remove it from being a hindrance or a pain in the neck, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah. I pray, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. And I hope you got something out of this. The thing with Iran is a good thing. It's going to fulfill prophecy. Now, how many people know that Iran and Iraq and possibly Syria are Elam, Elam, in Jeremiah 49? Almost nobody. If you research it, you'll see that it can be that way. Let me put it in AI and see what they say about that. Okay. In Jeremiah chapter 49, we read of a nation called Elam being destroyed by her enemies, and the people having to leave the country and get scattered into all the nations of the world. Period. Is this Elam what we call today Iraq and Iran? Iran. It's saying it responds specifically to northwest Iran. Now, if you're going to destroy northwest Iran, you're going to destroy Iran. Because when it says with enemies, because it means that the Iranians are going to fight against that from the entire nation of Iran. So it's pretty ridiculous to see that happen by her enemies, And there are historians that do speak this way too. Um, Elam was a country from the date 2700 BC to 539 BC. So it was around for 2,000 years plus. It says here that Iraq was actually part of ancient Babylon and Assyria. Okay. Elam was east of the Tigris across the Zagros. A lot of history texts biblical texts, actually, they're saying, clearly distinguish Elam from Babylon. It's true, Iraq is Babylon, and they might have been around at the same time. I can check that. Let's see. Did Elam... This will help us. Let's see. Did Elam and Babylon exist at the same time in history? Short answer. Well, I think we got this dispute may be settled. There are historians that say that it includes Iraq and parts of Syria, but what it's saying here, but there's a lot that say it doesn't. It says they did exist at the same time for many centuries. Elam was 2700 to 539 BC, and Babylon was 1900 to 939 BC. Well, it sounds like they're not the same thing. Iraq does have a drought of a sort similar to Iran, but I don't think it's that critical. So maybe it's not. It might, there's a lot of historians that are disputing this, but the fact that I could see for many centuries they both existed with the different names, I'm getting more secure in saying it's just Iran. But if it's destroyed by her enemies, which is what Jeremiah 49 says, and it's southwest Iran, it's very hard for me to imagine that this happens just in southwest Iran and the rest of Iran doesn't join the fighting. Now, if the cities they're overthrowing are in just southwestern Iran and they take a big piece of the geography and resign or withdraw from the government of Iran and create this other country just in southwest, well, then it would be easy to see it fulfilled, but right now it's still very difficult. So I think, borders change and stuff like that over time. So yeah, it could likely be just Iran, because the name, and both of them existing for many centuries at the same time makes me think it's probably not the same thing, unless after they stopped existing together at the same time. So that I think that's probably just Iran. And if we see something happen where a piece of southwestern Iran breaks off, then it's just that. But the way it is now, I'm sure all of Iran would be involved in protecting and saving northwestern Iran. I mean, maybe America or Israel attacks just that. I don't know. It says that they all scatter into all the nations where they get cut off with the sword. So if it was only southwestern Iran, they would leave southwestern Iran as Iranian citizens and go to the other parts of Iran. So it doesn't add up yet. It may never. It may just be very simply, it's all Iran. For what I just said, why would they scatter out of Iran? They would just go into Iran, unless they succeeded from Iran and became a different country and they were not allowed to go in there. That could be, we got to wait and watch. I think it's not going to be overly complicated. Okay, so that's what we got for today. I hope you got something out of it. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out.